I just want to talk about the oil. So today for the dressing, we're going to use an extra virgin olive oil, but I have a vegetable oil that's 100% soybean, and you can see a little bit the color difference in the extra virgin versus the soybean. So extra virgin olive oil, as you know or may not know, oil is pressed out of an olive, and extra virgin, so you have your virgin, which is the second pressing, and then you have your extra virgin, which is your third pressing. And that's the reason why the price of extra virgin is so expensive, because after the third pressing, there's not a lot of oil that comes out of it. But what does come out of it is a very flavorful, viscous type of oil. And again, from the third pressing, you're not getting a lot of oil out of it, so you need a lot of olives, which drives up the cost. So that tends to be the reason why something like this would run you anywhere between $40 and $50 for a gallon of olive oil versus $5.79 for vegetable oil. Both will work. Obviously, though, this has more flavor, which is what we're going to use today. Move these out of the way. So if you're doing an emulsion at home, if you're doing a Caesar salad dressing at home, I told you everything is going to be made from scratch. Making an emulsion by hand is a little bit tough because you don't have someone to hold the bowl. So what I've created here is I've got some wet towels, because wet towels add traction. So I've got a wet towel underneath my cutting board, or on my countertop. I found a cake pan that my large bowl can sit on top of, but I'm also going to put a wet towel over the cake pan and then sit the bowl on top, and that's going to really stabilize my counter, my bowl. All right. I've also noticed, you'll notice I'm using a large bowl. A small bowl does not pull in as much air as a large bowl does. All right. Remember, we're talking about the droplets of oil to create an emulsification, so we want to try to pull in as much air as possible. The only way that happens is with a wide mouth bowl. All right. So to begin, for Caesar dressing, I've got my egg yolks, or my eggs, I should say. I've got my lemon, fresh lemon. You saw my olive oil. I've got my fresh garlic. I've got Dijon mustard. I've got my salt and pepper, and then I'm going to garnish it up with some Parmesan cheese. All right. So I've got my acid. I've got my oil. I've got my flavoring. I also have my acid with my Dijon and my lemon juice, but I need my stabilizer first. A lot of folks don't realize you use raw egg yolks in a Caesar dressing. And what you do beforehand is you coddle the egg. So you put it in a little bit of water for about 10 seconds just to coddle it. So the outside edge of the bacteria inside the eggshell gets removed, and then you're able to separate your eggs. The other thing folks don't realize is that Caesar salad dressing has anchovy in it. And anchovy is the main flavor that goes into it. And I buy the paste for the classroom just because kids don't like to mash up whole anchovies. Crack the egg in my hand, and my hands are soft, so the egg white will go right through my hands. I don't need my shell. It goes right through my hands without breaking the yolk. It's also a much quicker way to separate your eggs. So it goes right through my hand, doesn't break. Get all that off. And then I've got my nice clean yolks. I'm gonna go wash my hands real quick. Which is 1 teaspoon. And you want to make sure that this is level. I know folks are thinking anchovy. It does have anchovy in it.
It's a nice salty flavor.
Yep, nice salty flavor is right. So I'm going to take that out. I've got my mustard, my Dijon mustard, which is my acid, also acts as a stabilizer. Make sure that that is level. That goes in. And what I like to do is I like to actually start whisking my yolks a little bit earlier, just to get the proteins broken up, get some air into there. It helps absorb the droplets of oil I'm about to add. All right, right now I can use my hand to hold the bowl, but when I start adding the oil, that's not going to happen. All right, so now I'm actually going to add my garlic to it as well. So I've got 2 cloves of garlic that I'm adding, and I'm going to whisk that in there. Really intensify the flavor. right, so now this is the part where it gets a little tricky. Make sure my towels are down. Make sure this is stable. So now I'm going to take my oil and I'm going to slowly stream it in. Just that camera. And I have to stay ahead of the oil. You notice the bowl is staying still and I'm whisking aggressively. So I'm adding a little bit of oil at a time, very slow. Again, staying ahead of the oil. And you can start seeing it becoming a bit viscous, as you can see from the top camera. Again, if I whisk really slow, it's not going to happen. It's not going to emulsify. So I have to make sure that I'm whisking aggressively and pouring only as I need it to stay ahead of the oil. And in the beginning, it's really tough. Not going to lie. You may have to take a break. I'd rather you take a break, maybe change hands, rather than rush the process, which means you'll have to start all over again if it breaks or separates. Whew. Second dressing I made today. Again, your arm gets tired, take a break. And you can see it really starting to get thick. Once it gets to a point where pretty much 3/4 of the oil is in, you can then speed up the process a little bit with adding the oil. But again, you don't want to flood it, because if you flood it, it's going to separate and break. And there's no saving it. You got to start over. And think back to the PowerPoint. 1 egg yolk will hold 8 ounces of liquid. And in this case, our liquid is the oil or the fat. So the droplets are now emulsifying, binding together. And when you're done whisking it all in, you should get this nice, thick consistency that sticks within your whisk. And that's going to be what coats your greens. All right, so from this point, I'm going to add my salt, my pepper, just a little bit. I'm using my fingertips so I can gauge it. And then I've got 2 tablespoons of Parmesan cheese that I'm going to add. I'm also going to add some fresh lemon juice. And I'm going to use my juicer here to keep the seeds and the pulp out and just grab the juice. And by adding this acid, it's actually going to turn the dressing a little bit whiter. And if you're out in a really fancy restaurant, the color of your Caesar dressing should look like this. This means they used a high quality olive oil. They used high quality ingredients. It's not from a bottle that you see processed at the supermarket. All right, and there's your dressing. And at this point, I would now add my cut greens, gently toss them around with a pair of tongs, and then I would put it on my plate and serve it.